and you guys.
You ready for my clap?
Clap away, babe. I tried to beat you to it. Question number 1.
How did we meet?
We met at Young Adults. Probably 2 years ago. Yeah, probably. I definitely noticed you before you noticed me. I think you would agree. Yep.
I'm pretty tall. I'm hard to miss.
You are very tall, very hard to miss. Yeah, so when I first started coming to Young Adults, I saw this super cute, tall guy, but I always thought, you're never going to be into someone like me. I want to live on a farm and have chickens, and you have gauges and tattoos, and how would those worlds go together? But little did I know, here we are. But yeah, we were probably friends for 6-ish months, give or take. Before we started dating. And then
the rest is history. I mean, really, I started to notice you when you had a few gatherings over your house, and it was kind of like a group setting where we could get to know each other a little bit better. And I was kind of in a season of just working on my relationship with God and not really pursuing relationships. I'd say for the first 26 years of my life, I put way too much of a priority on that, and it was nothing but a huge stress for me, and I kind of got in my own way because of that. And so for the 2 years leading up to that, I really didn't date anyone, and then finally got a kind of tap on the shoulder from God about, hey,
here I am.
This Cath girl, you should ask her out. And so the rest is history. Now you're my wife, and it's pretty dope.
Yeah, so dope. Why did you agree to do this video about relationships?
I agreed to do this video because I feel like the last 3 or 4 years, God's really been teaching me a lot about the importance of relationships and intentional relationships, and how key that is to my growth as a human. And so that's something that anytime I get a chance to kind of share a little bit of my story or what God's taught me, I decide to, talk. Plus, I'm really good at talking, so.
You're very good at talking. I agree. Relationships are very important and key. But unlike you, I did not want to volunteer myself to do this video, but it just happened one day. I was joking, and I was like, oh, I'll interview you for this video. But then everybody loved it, and so now here we are.
It's going to be great.
So great. So excited.
What do you look for in a relationship?
I think what I look for in a friendship and in a dating relationship are very similar. I laugh a lot. And so I like to look for people who are very joyful and who love to laugh and will laugh with me and also at me. I value vulnerability and honesty a lot in relationships. So probably the 4 main things I would say for myself. What about you?
I would say all those are definitely things that I look for in a relationship. Primarily, I just looking for somebody that's chasing after the same things as I am, wants to be in a similar place as me, whether that be, obviously being more Christ-like is a huge one, but in my career, or even something as small as somebody who's chasing after sitting on a couch and watching some NBA playoffs. That's a good friend right there. Go sports.
That was funny. All right. What is one thing you would tell yourself when you were single?
I can take this one.
Go for it.
I think the biggest thing I would tell myself is to toss the imaginary checklist of things that a woman has to meet for me to want to date her, just because first of all, that checklist has changed so much in my life, and it's kind of silly to think if I have this checklist, it should be to find somebody that I can marry one day, and if it's changed as much in my life, then it'll probably change more in my life. And so I would probably not worry about silly things like if they like country music, because
Country
I'm
music
married
is
somebody
great.
that loves country music, and I just roll my eyes at you whenever country radio's on.
Yeah. I guess I would tell myself to put myself out there. I feel like it took me a while to get to that point. But to put yourself out there, join groups, meet people, do whatever you can to get yourself to meet people. I just said people like 25 times.
What is our vision for community as a married couple?
I'll take this. I love nothing more than opening up our house to having people eat dinner with us, to come sit on the couch, bonfires, whatever it is. I love to do life with people inside our home. And so I think as a married couple and as a family, we want to just open up our home to inviting people into it for dinners, to inviting people in to worship together, pray together, learn about Jesus, but also do silly things like watch sports and other things.
Play board games like Secret Hitler, so we can call each other fascists.
Mario Kart.
Yeah. I think that was one of the big things that I realized that you were the one, and why I love you so much is just because of your heart for people. And like, I grew up in a big family, and we always were having people over to the house and stuff. So when I realized that you were, super passionate about that and people and opening your home, and we talked about that a lot in the first few months of our relationship, I realized that that's kind of been our vision and mission since the beginning of our relationship. So
For sure.
What's it gonna be?
I don't know. When have you struggled to maintain a relationship?
For me, it's when you're not looking for and chasing after the same things as the people. And so I'd say a big time in my life where I really struggled maintaining a lot of the relationship I had was about 4 years ago, when I had just switched jobs, and I was, because of my job switch, able to start coming to Crossroads more consistently, and really started feeling a tug from God to kind of switch my priorities a little bit. And so my old coworkers that I no longer worked with, that we primarily would go to work and then we'd go to the bars afterwards and just have some drinks and have a good time, that wasn't really what I was looking for anymore. And so I didn't necessarily want to cut them out of my life. Like, I still have a relationship with them, but they're not necessarily the people that I wanted to be doing life with on a day-to-day basis, because we were chasing after different things. And so whenever you're kind of on different trajectories, it's really hard to maintain relationships.
I would agree. You're so wise.
How do relationships change when married?
They change a lot. I think the transition from dating to married is a pretty big one. We have had to be a lot more intentional with our quality time, with our date nights. It's very easy to get caught up in things like around the house, and things on our to-do list, because we spend so much time together. But you can spend a lot of time with the other person, but we have to make an effort to make that quality time where we're putting effort in to grow our relationship.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that's changed for me is, obviously, outside of my relationship with God, you are my top priority now. And so I've always been somebody who's prided myself on being able to keep my commitments. And if I say I'm going to be somewhere and do something, I do it. And so first off, learning how to maintain those other relationships where maybe I'm not committing to quite as much, because I realize I need to keep time open for quality time with you and things. But also, there's been some things that come up with you, and I know that you need me there, and I have to tell the person, sorry, I can't make it. And in my head, I'm always like, this person's probably super upset with me. But one, they probably aren't, and two, even if they are, you're a priority over them. So that's probably the biggest thing that's changed since we've gotten married. So
that's a big thing. What about marriage is different than you expected?
You can start.
Okay. I guess one thing that I thought was going to be different is everyone always tells you marriage is so hard, it's so much work, and I just kind of laughed that off for so long, thinking that we were different and we were so in love and they don't understand. But in reality, marriage is hard and it's a lot of work, but it's great and it's incredibly rewarding, but it's also incredibly sacrificial.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say mine's pretty similar to yours. I felt like once we got married, your top love language is quality time, and so I thought, oh, quality time.
You got that.
It's gonna be so easy because we live together. There's just so much time there. Like I've got it made, and that was not the case.
Nope.
Just because your love language is quality time, you and I have different definitions of quality time. So while quality time for me might be we're just hanging out, having a little conversation, but just laying on the couch watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine for hours.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen often, but it's nice when it does. For you, it'd instead be let's go on a walk and talk about our day, and just being a little more intentional with our time. And so I really had to become a student of you. So becoming a student of your spouse, I think, is super important once you become married. So, okay.
I think so.
What are some relationships that have helped you get to where you are today?
I feel like we both have a lot of relationships that have kind of molded us into the people that we are today. I know for me, probably starting in around high school, I have spent large amounts of time with women who are 15 to 20 years older than me. People who I see what their life looks like, and I want my life to look similar to their life. I want my marriage to look similar to theirs, my family, all those things. And so I found a couple of those women, and then I just kind of hop right into their family, and I invest a lot of time with them just to get their wisdom. And let's be realistic, oftentimes I'd rather hang out with 40-year-old moms than people my own age.
I'd say for me, my mom was a huge influence on my relationship with God. She was always the one that made sure that I was in church. She was a church secretary all me growing up, and so I would be remiss if I didn't mention her. But I've also got a few guys in my life that I'm a part of Wednesday morning breakfast group with, that I used to work with at the Apple store, and they all go to church as well. And just being able to see their intentionality in our relationship with each other, but also they're all married and a lot of them have kids, so being able to see how they are with their wives and sacrificing for their wives and their family, and also just hearing about some of the struggles they've had in their marriages, and just being honest and vulnerable about that has really helped me realize what relationships are all about, but also kind of the sacrifice that comes with relationships, and especially in marriage. So last one.
Dun dun dun. What is one thing you think God wants us to know about relationships?
I would say the relationships are there to help us grow.
Yeah.
And so one, that doesn't mean they're always going to be super easy and fun, because from the tough times and maybe the conflict that comes out of relationships is where you can become a better person, more Christ-like, but also that relationships aren't always going to be mutually beneficial. And so it could be something where you are in a relationship with somebody and you can look at it and say, I'm getting this out of it, they're getting this out of it, but that's not always the case. It might be something where really you're the one giving the most, and that person just needs to be heard. They need to be loved on, and that kind of goes countercultural. A lot of our society says if you're not getting anything out of this, it's a waste of your time. But I think if you're really trying to live a life that's more Christ-like, you're going to be really spending time with the people that are in need of people in their life. And so
I would say that relationships take. Sorry guys, I choked on my Reese egg.
Reese egg. Reese egg will do that to you.
I'll start that over. I guess one thing that I think is that God wants us to know that relationships take a lot of effort and they take a lot of sacrifice. Yep. Cool.
Very wise. You almost made it through without choking on Reese's eggs, but that wasn't so bad, was it?
No. No. I'm gonna get some water.
So when are you guys gonna have kids?
Tomorrow.
2 more years.
I only said tomorrow because I knew you're gonna say that. We've got some time.
We do.
Maybe not quite 2 years.
We'll see.
We'll have kids when the Lord is ready for it.